So, welcome back to the Web3 Insights. I'm your host, Aaron Hayhurst, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Sheldon Hunt, who is the head of Cardano Ecosystem at EMURGO, a founding entity of Cardano. Cardano has always been a standout in the blockchain world, known for its research-driven development and innovative ecosystem. In this episode, we're going to explore where Cardano stands in 2024 and its plans for 2025. Focusing on scaling solutions, multi-chain interoperability, and the impact of Project Catalyst, its pioneering community and grant program as well. Let's dive right in. Sheldon, thank you so much for coming on.
Aaron, thank you so much for having me. And it's a pretty special time of the year, so I appreciate you taking the time out to make this happen.
No, absolutely. And probably the opportunity as well to say Merry Christmas to all of our guests as well.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah.
That's it, absolutely. Sheldon, to set the stage, could you just give us a snapshot of where Cardano stands in 2024? What are some of the key milestones that's been achieved so far this year?
Yes. Well, so I would dare say 2024 has been a very transformative year for Cardano. It was a year where a lot of hard work and dreams and aspirations over the last several years have finally come to fruition. And the big one there is actually like the completion of the original milestones. I guess you could say the final stage of those original milestones that was laid out in the roadmap for Cardano all those years ago. And the big kind of like capstone to all of this is on-chain governance and to turn over the reins to the community in an entirely decentralized way. And so that was some of the big stuff. We actually now have a Cardano constitution, and that was put together by the community and just recently ratified at a major convention in Buenos Aires, Argentina, just a few weeks ago. Yeah, so that was more like the governance community side of things. That was really, really big. But besides that, the chain has also seen enormous development. The amount of new features and functionality. We've got some really cool things happening with DeFi. We refer to it basically as Cardano DeFi 2.0. And there's some really, really amazing things that are now kind of opening up new possibilities, not only just in Cardano, but multi-chain. And I guess, yeah, we'll get into some of that later on. But it's been quite a year. We had some really amazing demos as well of where we're going to go next year, not to kind of like spoil it, but some of the super cool stuff we did was also related to a major tournament that was put on by IOG, which is one of the other founding entities of Cardano. They hosted a Doom tournament. So I'm sure you're aware of like Doom, the original kind of classic, innovative, the OG shooter.
Yeah.
And so put on a Doom tournament, and the really cool thing about this was it was all like on chain, and so it was done through something called Hydra, which is it's a state channel kind of L2, I guess you could say, but similar to, I guess you could imagine like the Lightning Network with Bitcoin. So there's no smart contracts built into it, but there's tons of transactions, and with Hydra, able to get millions of transactions per second. So you could have every action in the game be reflected as a transaction, and so enormous transactions being pumped out with that tournament, which was just amazing. So what we can do in the future is quite incredible. So it's got a lot of people very excited. So yeah, so that's kind of like, some of the big things happening this year.
Yeah, no, for sure. Sounds amazing. Cardano is obviously known for its methodical and research-driven approach. How has this particularly shaped the ecosystem's growth and user adoption, especially as we approach 2025?
Yes, well, so it's been actually a key part of Cardano's, the whole representation of what Cardano is to the community and the wider world was kind of like measured twice and cut once. This is something that we, in the wider community, and certainly those on the development side of things, have been quite proud of. Of course, it doesn't lend to the sexiest and the fastest. You don't go around breaking things as we see in other ecosystems. But that's by design. We've taken quite a bit of comfort with that. So there's now hundreds of peer-reviewed research papers that have been put out by the community, headed, once again, like credit to Charles and the teams over at IOG for all the work they do. Numerous universities from Japan to Scotland to the US and elsewhere that have been putting together incredible teams to really kind of churn out some amazing papers for Cardano development. Now we're at the stage going to 2025 where the rubber's really hitting the road, where the speed by which we now transition from the academic to the practical is really picking up. And it's very exciting. There's no shortage or stoppage or slowdown when it comes to research. There'll be more that will be done in the coming years. But we now have a lot more momentum than we've had previously. And I think quite a few like naysayers who were concerned that, Cardano, a little bit too behind. Actually, we've now kind of jumped ahead in a few things and are at a point where we believe we actually have with Cardano, at least for some things like particularly staking and some of the functionality for like native tokens, basically best in class. And we see the EVM world now trying to emulate some of the features there, which is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, more collaboration coming.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff going on at Cardano at the moment, and certainly something that I've been following quite closely myself as well. Scaling is obviously a big topic for blockchain networks, and Cardano is no exception. Could you walk us through how solutions like Hydra, is it Midgard and Sundial, are addressing sort of scalability for the network as well?
Yes. Well, we actually have quite a few things that are going on concurrently. Like we're going to be in a very interesting place basically 12 months from now where we're going to have a few things like firing on all cylinders and very confident we're going to have a lot of the scalability questions more or less solved. Of course, nothing is ever completely done, certainly not in this space, but we'll be in a very good place next year. But yeah, so as you were mentioning, so those are kind of like some of the three, but there's numerous other examples of some scaling solutions coming down the pipeline. So yeah, Hydra, as I mentioned before, similar to the Lightning Network on Bitcoin, but tailored for Cardano, where you can have millions of transactions. Theoretically, you can have Hydra heads inside of Hydra heads, so it amplifies the scaling there. And so in theory, talking to another team member there, they theoretically could get up to like 1 billion transactions per second, which I don't know why you would ever need that, but it's pretty crazy. It's something that could be done. Once again, you don't have the same smart contracts kind of capabilities there, but maybe you don't always need that, right? You think about
for sure,
like Visa, MasterCard, other credit cards. And so this is something tailor-made for that, even like high-frequency trading and gaming. So there's a lot of use cases just for this, which is super cool. Besides that, as you mentioned, so there's Midgard, which is a tech stack, which is an optimistic roll-up, similar to, say, like Polygon or Optimism or Arbitrum on Ethereum, but we're now building it out on Cardano, which is super cool. There's certain functionality there that will make it quite unique and different from the EVM kind of layer 2 experience, where for all of those other EVM layer 2s, they're essentially just smart contracts with multi-sigs that are just stacked on top of each other. Whereas in Cardano, you actually have all of the layer 2s be native on the base layer. So you've got, similar to all of the Cardano native tokens, they truly are tokens that have the shared security as ADA, which makes it pretty fascinating. So there's some cool things you can be doing there. And so, we're now building up Midgard, and Midgard leads into Sundial, which is kind of like a Polygon or an Arbitrum for. So it's going to be specifically focusing on doing quite a lot of really cool things with DeFi and then pulling in other UTXO chains to allow for some multi-chain DeFi, all kind of settled in Cardano. But a lot of that settlement's all under the hood. It's going to be something that's pretty cool going across chains.
No, for sure. Some cool stuff. How do you see these scaling solutions enabling, real world use cases for enterprises, developers, and, end users on Cardano?
Yes. Well, so besides the examples that I mentioned before about like gaming and say like kind of credit cards, payments, remittance, all that's the kind of stuff we always kind of think of and always imagine. But what's super cool is that we can now have, say, with like this optimistic roll up, be it Sundial or another one that rolls out of Midgard, you can have also Hydra plug into that. So you can have scaling on top of scaling. So you got some compounding scaling there. And so we've talked already with a number of teams, and we want to get to a point where basically you can have mass media being pushed out on chain instantaneously with mass mints, right? So we can think of, say, like an album that drops by one of a few different, say, Cardano music projects. And they could have like 3 million mints go off more or less simultaneously, which is super cool. Could do the same thing with, think of like book.io or stuff.io with other some of the media that they've got there, be it like, once again, books, but it could be art. Want to get to a point where people are kind of even self-publishing. You've got like a whole kind of creative economy that's churning out millions of different assets that people are interacting with in real time simultaneously, which is super cool. It's a bit out there, but that's what we're aiming for. And so there's a lot of other use cases. Obviously, we're seeing really cool things around like DePIN, AI. And so it's just the beginning. We're just kind of scratching the surface, but already there's some amazing use cases.
Yeah, no, for sure. DePIN's like particularly an area that I noticed as well, which is like, especially this year over like the last 6 months, it's just something that's been popping. It's a name that you see everywhere. It's like that new buzzword, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is a buzzword, but we go through so many buzzwords in this space. It's a little bit ridiculous.
Of course. To be honest, I think tech in general, I don't necessarily just think it's, the Web3 space, but in tech in general, it always seems to be the case. Multi-chain focus includes projects like IBC, XLR, and ties to networks like Bitcoin, XRP, and OneChain. How is Cardano leveraging these collaborations to expand its interoperability?
Yes, yeah. Well, so a lot of this stuff, it all kind of overlaps and kind of it maps together. So with the IBC, so it's like the blockchain communication channel, which is super cool. A lot of that coming out of the Cosmos ecosystem. So enormous credit to those guys. So allowing this to kind of come into effect, which we're now expecting basically end of Q1, beginning of Q2, and allows for Cardano to be communicating and interacting with not just Cosmos, but with all of these other chains. A big part of that is going to be working with Axelar, Agoric, even like OneChain. We're already plugged into OneChain, but so a number of other bridges that are ongoing. But some of these other guys that are more specific to the IBC, which is very cool, and allows Cardano to be being interoperable with 70 plus chains to do some pretty cool things. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but in some pretty advanced conversations with a number of other chains about collaborative work, be it with stable coins, game assets, and other things. And so we truly believe like the future of interoperability is coming down the pipeline pretty quickly. There's always going to be some growing pains, and things do take a little bit longer. Some of the bigger things to be taken into consideration right now is actually just around kind of security and stability. And what we could be doing with ZK proofs. It's once again a big buzzword, but for good reason. It's going to be
good reason.
Some really cool things. And so on like the Bitcoin side of things, there's a lot of really amazing work that's been done these last several months, years now with ZKs. And so you can do some really cool things to have Bitcoin for this first time be able to see and understand what is happening on another chain. Because historically, other chains can look on Bitcoin, but Bitcoin couldn't reflect that back. They couldn't acknowledge what was happening elsewhere. And so now with ZK proofs, we can do that. It takes just a small sliver of block size, which is what you want. And so, yeah, it allows some really, really cool things to happen. We can now also imagine that the same tech could be utilized in other UTXO chains, Dogecoin, Litecoin, and elsewhere. So, I would dare say 12 months from now, we are going to be living in a new, more interoperable world when it comes to blockchain. And it's going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned obviously there about ZK as well, but that being a big buzzword at the moment, but it is because it's so sought after at the minute. There's so many clients that, from a recruitment perspective that I work with that, are looking for this type of talent, but finding the best talent in that particular space is quite scarce in terms of like good talent as well. And that's been a real focus of mine at the minute in terms of like trying to source out these people that stand out in the industry. And it's a difficult task as well, because it's not just a case of like finding these people on LinkedIn, right? There's so many sort of areas that you need to search or try to find these people or get referrals from other people in the space to sort of unearth that talent. But it's definitely a very interesting area as well.
Yes, very interesting. So in that, I don't envy you, because this is going to be some hard work. Just sourcing some of the talent that's out there, it is a challenge. We are dealing with like global enterprises that are under a bit of pressure from their communities, from their investors to kind of go out there and unlock the potential of this. There's still only, I dare say, several dozen people who can actually kind of grasp and work with ZK proofs as it currently stands today. Yeah. Hopefully this is changing. We'll see like more uptick in education, but classic tech, right? Things are running ahead 100%. Real quick. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. The trouble is as well, it's like it's the companies competing for them as well. Because then when you get like someone that's like really good within that field, you know, and really knowledgeable and technically savvy, they've got options, man. Like honestly, they've
Oh,
got so
yeah.
many options in the space at the moment. There's so many companies looking for these type of people. It's like, well, what can these companies offer them that, you know, or what's going to excite them to sort of want to join their project over someone else's?
Yes. And I've seen that play out elsewhere. And certainly it's a big thing in Cardano, kind of speaking from my own experiences, that you can throw quite a bit of money at people, right? And there is like obviously it goes a long way. People like getting paid. But there's a really cool thing that we see in these communities in blockchain where there's also an ideological sense, like a true belief that we need to be doing this for the betterment of the world, the betterment of decentralization and stability and the future of finance and our descendants, which is very cool. It's very empowering. So sometimes you do have those particular all-star developers, and yeah, there's a
Yeah.
cultural alignment, and they will make the
Yeah,
jump.
100%. Like, you know, the money's good and the money can be great, but does it give you that caffeine injection in the morning to make you,
Yeah,
you know, want to get up and give you that buzz? I think that's the critical difference. But look, you know, as you know, the blockchain industry trends towards interoperability in particular as well, which, you know, we were sort of discussing there. How does Cardano's ecosystem position itself to sort of thrive in a multi-chain world?
well, it's a good question, and I think that for a number of chains, there's going to be a bit of like this kind of like awkward phase where they're trying to see where they best fit as a bit of like a niche ecosystem. Because if everything's going to be plugged into everybody else, maybe it's best to kind of like have your own speciality that you kind of zone in on. And I can understand that. I know that there's a lot of gaming chains over on the EVM side of things that are fighting for position. With Cardano, like we are quite proud of some of like the culture that's been built up over the years, the dedication to what I would say kind of revolves around kind of pushing power to the edges, the kind of ethos that we are going to be doing something good that is kind of academically oriented for the betterment of people. And it is kind of taking a lot of its, excuse me, frog my throat, a lot of like inspiration from Bitcoin, right? We're just kind of the next like evolutionary step from Bitcoin, at least for many people in the ecosystem, because it is unlike some of these other chains, there is no unlimited supply. There is like a hard cap for ADA, which is a pretty cool thing. And we can do a lot of the things that you could do over on the EVM side of things, but slightly different. It is coded different, and there's more of an emphasis on security. And we do believe if we get to a point, and I think it's around the corner, where we've got some major companies putting billions of dollars of assets on chain, they're going to want to have more of a security-focused approach to this.
Yeah.
Like this year, Cardano, well, actually not even just this year, in the grand scheme of Cardano's entire existence, it has not gone down once. There's been no hacks, no outages, no downtime, which is a very rare thing to say. I believe like there's a whole list. The Algorand guys had put out a list kind of documenting chains that have gone down, and the vast majority of the major chains have all gone down, with the exception of a few, just like a handful, like 3 or 4 have not, Algorand being one, but obviously Cardano as well. And so we think that that's actually like a winning proposition to some of these corporates where you can't second guess it. You don't want to have any wallet draining. You don't want to have to worry about what your wallet's interacted with. Some of the multi-sig stuff on the EVM side is a little bit not entirely fit for purpose. But,
Yeah.
they're figuring it out, of course. We're never done, and not to throw stones. But there's some stuff that's really cool that's already there in Cardano that we think is actually very attractive.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, you know, speaking of the cool stuff sort of that's going on and attractive, Project Catalyst is a community grant program that just wrapped up its 13th funding round. Could you give us an overview of the program and its significance to the Cardano ecosystem as well?
Yes, yeah, well, so it's hugely significant. I really couldn't kind of do it justice because it is a very, very cool community grant initiative that's been around for a few years, and it has bootstrapped many of the awesome projects that have been built on Cardano and also kept many projects alive through a pretty nasty bear market. And so it's worth kind of like taking a moment to kind of acknowledge what it's done. So for these last couple of rounds, yes, as you were saying, the 13th round is just wrapped up. In these last few rounds, there's been an allocation of 50 million ADA that goes out And these are then kind of, each round opens up to the community to kind of put forward proposals. In this most recent round in Fund 13, there was over 1,600 proposals that were put in, which is wild. And then 199 got approved to go through. Pretty high failure rate. So anybody who got through, major kudos, because it's a very difficult thing to do. But there has been some awesome projects that are getting funding this round that are going to really do some super cool things going ahead. Like off the top of my head, some of the big ones, like once again, name dropping the guys over at book.io or stuff.io, getting some funding to do some really cool things as it relates to publishing with existing authors. Stephen King comes to mind, and there's a few others. And so that's amazing. And then actually the Barcelona FC football club, they had a proposal go through related to fan engagement. And so we're going to be seeing some more sports teams engaging. More ecosystem development, a number of different VCs and incubators are also kind of collaborating with Catalyst for some of the amazing stuff happening next year. So like Draper University, Techstars, CV Labs, there's some very cool collaborative work coming to kind of speed up the further development of the Cardano ecosystem. And then so many more. I could be at this all day, but a lot of really cool back-end tooling. And then even like I mentioned earlier in the chat, Sundial. So Sundial also got voted through. Thank the community for that. It's my baby, and wonderful to have that go through. It'll be my major focus next year. And so it's super cool to have the community kind of rally behind that and see it through.
No, for sure. I mean, speaking of next year, as we look ahead, what are the key goals and priorities for Cardano heading into 2025? Are there any transformative updates or developments that, we and the community should keep an eye on?
Yes. So beyond what we talked around today with like scaling, so that's going to be huge. And some of the partnerships coming out of Catalyst, huge. And I mentioned at the start of our chat around governance, but this is going to be, I think, one of the bigger things in Cardano. It's not going to be for everybody. So you're kind of your average retail casual holder of ADA can probably just kind of turn off the blinders and just kind of go on ahead with use cases. But for others in the ecosystem, the community who want to be involved in governance, we've got some crazy things coming down the pipeline. It's going to be flavorful. There will be some battles to come, without a doubt. As we've seen elsewhere, Polkadot comes to mind. Those guys have been kind of charting some really cool paths when it comes to on-chain governance. And now Cardano with the Pullman hard fork, which is coming up very soon, if not this week, is going to unlock Cardano's treasury for the community to kind of go at, which is both like super exciting, but also for many people super concerning, because we could see some ridiculous spends. So there could be some successful proposals coming from the community for major marketing pushes. And that's one thing that I'm expecting, that you're going to see more Cardano stuff all around the world in the year ahead. Because, in that Cardano treasury as of today, it's 1.5 billion ADA. So it's a fairly substantial amount of funding, and many people are getting excited. So there's going to be some pushes and pulls in the community to kind of tamper expectations, make arguments for use cases for the need for these resources to be kind of put forward for this or that cause. And we imagine there's going to be political parties that form. You're already seeing like regional councils form, Asia and Latin America, to kind of organize for their interests and their cultural takes on how Cardano goes forward. So it's very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. But once again, it's something that won't be for everybody, but for those who are interested, there's so much to chew on here.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Finally, just to finish up really quickly, what advice, and I love to ask this question to everyone that comes on, what advice would you give to developers, entrepreneurs, or communities looking to build on Cardano or participate in its ecosystem?
Well, one of the first ones is just to come and reach out to me. I've got a pretty open door policy. Like anybody can shoot me a message anytime. So you can shoot me a message on X. That might be the best way. So just @_Mr. Hunt_. Just look me up, Sheldon Hunt, or on LinkedIn. I'm not particularly active there. Some people in Web3 kind of now more X than anything else. But just, reaching out to kind of maybe test the waters and have a conversation. I'm always down for that. But for developers and those kind of curious about where Cardano's at, because I think there is this tendency to kind of get lost in all of the various amazing developments in the news in the ecosystem, and we lose track of everything that's happening elsewhere. Just these last several months, another big development was the rollout of what we refer to as like Aiken. So it's like a new coding language for Cardano. So before, people were kind of held back from building on Cardano because there was this concern that you had to know Haskell, which is quite difficult. It's great if you want to put rocket ships in space or to run your power stations. But for a dude in his basement who just wants to set up some cool DeFi bots, it's not really fit for purpose. But Aiken changes all of that. And that was something really cool put together by the Cardano Foundation and some of the community. And it's made the developer experience so much better. So it's basically a modified version of Rust. There's a lot more really incredible developer tooling that's coming up basically every week. And so it's never been easier to kind of jump in and play around. And so any developers who are kind of curious, do shoot me a message. Be happy to throw together some introductions. We've got some big brains doing some really awesome stuff these days. And so, yeah, bring it on. Come build.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you know, it's definitely going to be an exciting year, that's for sure. You know, from Cardano's perspective, but just across the industry, I'm, you know, absolutely pumped for 2025 in this space. I've been in the space for just over 5 years now, and probably this is one of the most excited that I've been. Yeah, very much looking forward to it. But thank you, Sheldon, you know, for sharing these exciting updates. Excuse me. I think, you know, it's been absolutely great to have you on. You know, and sharing the insights on the future of Cardano. It's clear that Cardano's commitment to scalability, interoperability, and, you know, community-driven innovation is obviously setting it apart in the blockchain space, and I certainly feel that as well myself. You know, for our listeners, if you'd like to learn more, visit Project Catalyst or EMURGO for updates on all things Cardano. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Web3 Insights for more conversations with innovators shaping the decentralized future. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time. And again, thank you, Sheldon, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas. All the best to you, Aaron, and everybody tuning in. Have a great 2025.